over to you.
Good stuff. Okay, so for those that haven't used Menti before, get it ready because when we get to that slide, there's going to be a couple of questions and we don't pause for too long there. If you don't see a poll yet, don't worry. As soon as we get there, the poll will pop up. Okay, for those that don't know who I am, my name is Guy Jelley. I'm the CEO and one of the co-founders of PPO. Tarryn makes me do this session every quarter. So we do 4 of these product webinars a year. The intention, if you're new to this, thanks for joining. The intention of this is just to make sure that we give you an opportunity once a quarter to pause and understand some of the enhancements that we've been raising. Most of you know we're an agile development shop and have been for many years. We generally deploy on a weekly basis. Some very small changes, some changes that are only applicable to admin features, and then sometimes some significant big features. But these quarterly sessions just give us the ability to wrap it all up for the quarter and show it back to you. If you subscribe to the blog, which hopefully you do, and we'll post some stuff later, I'm sure Lindy will post a link to it. You get an email on a Thursday, every single Thursday, with the latest product news, the latest enhancement for that week, maybe a client reference or success story or something like that. So we keep you in the loop via the notifications within the app, as well as the notifications that come on those weekly blog posts. But these sessions are just a little opportunity to connect with our user base and to share. We also invite clients to share a story or a feature or a success of how they've used PPO. So we're quite fortunate today to have the University of the Western Cape with us, and I'll introduce Andre a little bit later, but he'll be doing what we call our client spotlight. So agenda very quickly, welcome and introductions. I think I've done that. Tarryn will take us through the session as well. She's one of our colleagues and has been with PPO for many, many years. We're going to cover quickly today the side panel, multiple resources assigned to an item. Then we'll do the customer spotlight, where Andre will talk about prioritization from the University of the Western Cape point of view. Scheduler is a big feature we launched end of last year, and we're constantly making improvements to that. So we've got a whole bunch there we'll quickly cover. And then calculated key metrics, something that we've been using internally for a month or so now, that's coming shortly to all users. And we thought it was a nice opportunity just to show you a little bit of a sneak peek of that and get you thinking about how you could use that. Q&A at the end. And then what the ladies will also do is post all the resources and all the rest of it. And then we've got one more product webinar in November, but we'll cover that just now. Q&A we'll cover at the end, but if there are any questions, you're more than welcome to pop it in the chat. Myself and Lindy, who I'm sure everybody at PPO or everybody that works with PPO knows, will be updating and providing feedback in the chat during the session. But if there are any specific questions you'd like to ask, we can unmute and have that chat at the end. Okay, I think I've done the right job there. Welcome to some of the new clients. Every quarter we try and highlight some of the clients. We've got a university theme going by the looks of it today. So we've been fortunate enough to bring the Northwest University on board as well. So if there's any of their users, welcome. BDO, I'm sure most people know, join a number of the other accounting, auditing, consulting type organizations. C Squared, and then the Malati project managers as well. These are just some of the clients. If you are a new client in the last quarter and you're not here, please don't feel unloved or unwanted. We'll put you up in future months, I'm sure. But just a welcome to all the new clients. And thanks for once again choosing PPO when you have a selection of numerous products in this space. Okay. Tarryn, this is back to you, I believe.
So just for everyone, as Guy mentioned, we deploy new features on a weekly basis. You do see it in the weekly blog that comes out on a Thursday. Lindy, if you wouldn't mind just posting the link to the chat. So if you aren't signed up to the blog, you likely haven't seen some of these new features, or if you don't see your in-app notifications, but this is just a highlight of the features that you would have seen from June to September 2025. Some of them are smaller and you don't actually notice them. They're security enhancement, but these include the list of noticeable enhancements that you would have seen over the last quarter. So Here again, if you have not signed up to the blog, we promise we will not spam you. You will get one email from us on a Thursday, which will focus on the product news for that week. There are some cases where you will receive other types of notifications, and that would be for invites for these sessions, reminders, etc. But it is definitely not any other types of emails that you will receive. Okay, so that's going to take us to our very first feature that we're going to talk about, and that is going to be our side panel. Just give me a sec, I will demonstrate it for you. So I've got a instance open here. So to talk to you about the side panel, I'm going to use my project manager homepage view. So I am Jane and I'm working on a number of projects. I've got one project that's assigned to me, and side panel would be very handy in working with my homepage and maintaining the data. So previously, without the side panel, you would have not noticed these action buttons. So the first thing you notice with the introduction of the side panel is an additional column called actions with a view and an edit icon. The reason we introduced the side panel was to help you to keep the context, so your current screen, don't lose what you're working on, have less clicks, and maintain the data directly from this view. If I were to edit my project, I can still see the data here on the left-hand side. I've got an edit mode open and I would be able to maintain the data, but it doesn't mean that I can't still have access to the previous icons that I would have seen if I had opened it in a new tab. What you will notice, being the first icon, is the ability to save to your list. So the list widget, which you all probably used to seeing, you still have access to that. You've got a copy page URL. So when you want to share a link to a specific project or a filtered list or view button, you've got the page URL, which you can still access from the icon. You can open in a new tab. You can expand your tab into a full screen, or you can choose to close it. Expanding it in a full screen will still keep it open, give it in a wider screen. I can collapse it and then choose to open it in a new tab. What would have happened in the past is you would have had multiple tabs that were open up in the top, and you would lose where you were. You would need to use your back button, and now you've just got less clicks to perform the same functions that you would have done before. The only noticeable differences on the side panel, just so that you understand where it opens in a new tab, is something like the view project side panel option. So if I were to click on view project, this one will continue to open in a new tab. And the reason for that is because the project view page is the only page that you still have your related entities. So you've got your health indicators below. Then you've got your comments, and depending on whether you've customized your page on Project View, you might have changed the order of these things, but this would be the reason why on a view project icon for your actions, it still opens in a new tab. Any other entity like cost detail, you'll see the cost view would still open in the side panel option. So the difference is on the project view, and the reason is because you have related entities which might not be user-friendly in being able to edit the remaining entities linked to the project view page. Just navigating to my board, I just want to highlight for you the use of the side panel. If you hover over the title on your board view, you will see the side panel opens in a view. The board widget does not have icons, so clicking on the title gives you the side panel view, and clicking on the pencil will give you the edit on the work item linked to the board. Depending on whatever it is you choose to board, whether it's risks or actions or issues, in my case I did work items, just knowing that clicking on the title gives you the view, clicking on the pencil gives you the edit. So recapping, the benefit of the side panel allows the users to navigate to the information through less clicks, the quick ability for you to edit the data, and of course to copy all the other action icons that you would be used to seeing. So one place where I've found particular benefits on the side panel, I'm just going to go back to my project view page, is specifically on history records. So if you've been working with PPO for a long while, you know that everything in PPO has got an audit trail. It's time and date stamped. Therefore, you maintain a history of the updates and being able to quickly see what changed on an item. Of course, you can see it in the columns that you've included in your history table, but you can click through to the history, look at it, go back to the current item, close it, go to the next history record. So I've found that history on documents, history on the project view, being able to see the changes to status and phase, changes to document status, changes to the file itself has been useful with the side panel. I'm sure you guys have seen other benefits of it, but I've definitely found that accessing history records has been particularly useful on the side panel. Okay, so that's side panel. The next feature that we're going to touch on is multiple resources to an item, assigned to an item. This has been one that we've spoken about at a couple of webinars. I think we've been excited about this one for at least 18 months now, giving you an update that it's coming, and it's finally here. For those of you who have not used it or chosen to adopt it, just know that while the feature is there, it is up to the PPO administrators to identify places in PPO where it would make the most sense for you to implement something like multiple resources. So what this means is that on things like a risk, an issue, a work item, things like your contact person or your owner field, in the past, if you had a risk where it was the same risk but you wanted multiple people to action it, you would have needed to duplicate that item more than once. So depending on however many people were assigned to the item, you could end up with 2 or 3 risks, but assigned to different people. Then came conversations. Conversations gave you the ability to use the tagging option, and you could use that mechanism to get multiple people to provide feedback. And the latest enhancement is much like custom lists having multiple custom list values, multiple resources follow the same vein. So it's the mechanism or the ability for you to change your single selection resource field. So this applies to any resource list type field, like a project owner or something like a project team. You would be able to convert that to a multiple resource selection field, and you can have a single item with multiple people assigned to it. So I'm going to share you some examples where it would make the most sense to use this. If you haven't yet adopted it, just think about where it would make the most sense. But I'm going to go to my scheduler for my project. I've got my links widget here, so quick access to the scheduler for my project. And here I've navigated to the scheduler. Scheduler is the ability for use the integrated scheduler in PPO, so no longer necessary for you to import an external file like Microsoft Project or the task import sheet, the Excel-based format for Mac users or Google Sheet users. You can use the built-in scheduling capability directly in PPO. So looking at the responsibility column, this is one where you would want to assign multiple resources to an item. As you can see, I've got attend stakeholder session, project manager, account manager, project owner, project sponsor. So you've got a single activity where you've got multiple people involved, but you've now needed to duplicate that task 4 times for the 4 people that are going to be attending the stakeholder analysis session. So this is what you would have needed to do in the past without the ability for you to assign multiple resources to an item. Now, what I can do is I can click on the responsibility field and I can select from the list, Alan needs to attend, there's an account manager, there's Evelyn, there's Harry, however many people, I can now use that in a single task and assign all the people to that particular task. What now happens is that it's not necessary for you to have duplicated this task 4 times to reference the different stakeholders that would be attending the session. You will notice it on the Gantt as well. So here to the right, I can see all of the resources involved in this particular activity. I can submit, and that records my change. So in a perfect world, tasks from 5 to 8 would then be deleted because I've got a single task and I can include all of my resources in that single task. You would also notice that you can change the percentage allocation of each person to that task. So here, if I wanted to set this to 10%, I could. If I wanted to set this to 50%, I could. If this was 20%, and I can leave that one as 100%, and again, submit the change, and that would have recorded the percentage allocation to that specific activity. So that's one example of where multiple resources assigned to an item is particularly useful. It gives the project manager the ability to stop duplicating activities, have a single activity, assign multiple people, and then you would have less of this. So that's multiple resources assigned to an item on the task entity. The next one that I'm going to show you is resourcing for my project. So I'm going to quickly jump to resource allocations. Now, for most organizations that we work with, they choose to do capacity management or resource planning using the resource allocations and breaking the dependency on your schedule. And the reason for that would be that using resource data from the schedules requires that your projects have a schedule upfront, so like very early on in the process, because you want to account for time spent in initiation and the upfront work. And in most cases, you don't have a project manager always assigned that early on, and you don't have a schedule. So your capacity view misses that time spent in that front end planning of the project. So what most organizations then choose to do is to use the resource allocations entity for capacity planning, resource management. So here, if I have a resource where, as an example, you saw I assigned multiple people to a task, I can choose to do the same thing on resource allocations. So you can see the allocation seems to end in December 2025, and I've got the same resources required to work on my project in 2026. What I can now do is, yes, side panel is really handy because I can still see the context here and I can see exactly who those resources are. And I can choose to say Tracy, and I would be able to specify her allocation. And in this case, I'm going to set it to 20%. Then I've got Jane as well. I'm going to specify Jane as well and change Jane's allocation, because Jane's allocation for the period that I want, I'm only going to need her for 10%. I've got my next resource, who is Barry, and Barry is 10% as well. Just changing that. So I've got Barry at 10, and I've got Stephen. So I don't need the rest of the resources for the same time frames. I just want to get Stephen added here. So I don't need Harry and I don't need Joe, but I need them from January the 20th, 2026. And I need them until Feb 2027 at that percentage of capacity, which I've specified already. And I've got all my resources added for the same period from the 19th of Jan till the 27th of Feb at different percentage allocations. So here's another useful way in which you can use multiple resources assigned to an item. It of course doesn't take away from the usual places that we've seen it being used, things like a risk contact person, issue owners, action owners, where you want to assign multiple people together with using the conversations. Those are options for you to use as well. And that's it. I'm sure some of you have already started using it, but some tips on where it's made a lot of sense for the projects that I've been involved in or I've seen from my clients, being able to assign multiple resources, responsibility on tasks, as well as on resource allocations. Guy, over to you to introduce Andre.
Good stuff. I see we are a little bit behind schedule, so I'm going to do this fairly quickly. Andre Redlinghuis is joining us from the University of the Western Cape, has been a PPO client for many years, has done quite a bit of significant work on PPO, is also an administrator over and above running the PMO. So Andre is going to talk to us today about prioritization. Andre, thanks very much for coming on these sessions. I know it's always brave to put your hand up for these type of things, but thank you very much for all your years of loyal support of PPO, but also for joining us today. Before Andre starts, here's probably your first poll. I presume Tarryn's putting this up because she wants me to talk through this. Yes, I'm well trained. Okay, so prioritization is something we've seen quite a bit of recently, actually, and maybe not recently is the right word, probably from COVID time, where I think organizations had a fat portfolio of projects and probably too much money and too much resources, to very quickly having not enough money and too little resources. So we've done quite a bit of work in the prioritization space, whether you're talking about demand and portfolio management that happens before projects or just in the project process as well. So quick question for you on Mentimeter. Remember to use the link. I see Lindy's just posted it there. Yeah, they start coming. If you're using the app, you can just go menti.com and use that code. So what's the biggest challenge your organization faces when prioritizing projects? Too many competing priorities, lack of clear criteria for decision making, limited visibility of what resources are working on. This is the one I love the most. Pressure from stakeholders or leadership, those pet projects or guy says you must do it project, that type of stuff. Difficult aligning projects to strategy. And then one that I think is prevalent, where you actually don't know what's going on with your current list of projects, either having access to all the projects that are going on without knowing the ones that are under the table, or when you have a list of projects, knowing whether they're actually going well or not, or on track or not, before you even prioritize. So I think this will just give some insight, and when Andre goes through it, I think you can think about what he's done in terms of what your odds are. But it seems like a fairly even split there. Andre, I don't know why you're stealing the screen there from us. Okay, Andre, over to you. Thank you very much for joining and for doing the presentation today.
Guy, thank you for the intro. I think the questions actually summarizes the introduction that I was going to talk to. Sharon, Tarryn and I will try and share my screen quickly.
Yes, go for it.
Right. Okay, is it visible?
Yep.
Perfect.
Okay, perfect. Guy, I think once again, thank you to you and your team for the invite. We are currently busy with a prioritization exercise, and it is part of our yearly budgeting and planning cycle. So it's quite relevant in our space. And I think maybe to some of the questions that you have highlighted, yes, at some level, COVID was one of the reasons that we started to focus on a way of streamlining initiatives coming through to our desks. But also, as you guys are probably aware, the university environment within South Africa is financially pressurized. From a state funding perspective, we are experiencing significant financial pressure and cuts. Operationally, universities, the OPEX is increasing significantly. And also, universities are dealing with student debt. So based on some of those scenarios, we had to find a way to really ensure that the projects that we are focusing on is in support of realizing our strategic goals. You've mentioned before that in some cases we're dealing with projects that are pet projects from the executives. Some projects filter through to our environment through various channels and platforms, and often not the formal platform that we're hoping they would actually utilize. And we had to say, no, we can't operate in this manner. We had to find a way to streamline this approach. And about 3 years ago, we developed this framework that looked at how we firstly select the appropriate initiatives. And from that process, or the approval thereof, we then proceeded with a prioritization of business cases that would lead into the projects that we would ultimately focus on. And I think with the support of PPO, we were fortunate then to build this into the platform. I must admit that this is a relatively new initiative that we launched about 2 years ago formally, after we went through various governance approvals and getting the support and approval of the executives. So we started with this process in 2024. We have started seeing some benefit of trying to align the organization in terms of using one specific process or framework, but there are still some learnings that we need to enhance and focus on. I am using our training instance just to show you and share with you what we have done. We are, like I said, busy with a budgeting and planning process, so I didn't want to touch on the live environment and potentially impacts on the data that we're busy with. Our process or framework essentially covers 3 phases. The first phase deals with requests being filtered through to the PMO with the support and approval of each and every executive. We don't work on initiatives that haven't come through via a formal channel. And each executive line is responsible for completing a template that we refer to as a framing document. So they really need to think about the request, what is it that they want to achieve, and what should the project ultimately entail. At a particular juncture within the year, we start our budgeting and planning process, and all these initiatives are tabled. And through a process of collective discussion and justification, each executive line needs to justify why their initiative is more important than another. And we are using a peer comparison method where we essentially discuss each and every initiative and compare it to another. And based on a scoring mechanism that we apply, the stronger of those initiatives are highlighted, and we apply a score, which then ultimately feeds into some form of ranking. And those initiatives are then basically the second phase, where we then develop the specific business cases. And at the end of that process, we would apply a scoring mechanism once again. We would look at things such as business risk, technology readiness, skills readiness, and so forth. And the outcome of that scoring process would be the actual projects that we would then focus on for the new financial year, which is then ultimately phase 3. I think just by way of example, what you see on the screen is a set of initiatives that we receive from our various executive divisions. And what we typically ask them to consider when they complete these framing documents are to really think about what are your business goals and objectives that you want to achieve. They need to think about the business drivers from a people, process, and technology perspective. They also need to think about how does this initiative actually align to the university strategic objectives. We have about 8 objectives or goal areas at the institution, and each and every project needs to align and support one of those or even more of those specific goal areas. We ask them to also start thinking about possible scope, and then also importantly, the benefits of actually delivering on a project of this nature. Once this process has been completed, We then ultimately, with the assistance of business analysts within my team, we analyze and we get them in a state to start the comparison process. And with that process, we then basically compare each and every initiative against the other. And I think by just way of example, in this case, we compare the digitization of the dental faculty's request against the postgraduate experience project. And through discussion, debate at executive level, it was agreed that in this scenario, the postgraduate experience project carries a bit more impetus and weight. And based on the peer comparison method, a score of 1 was then ultimately assigned to this initiative. We captured the date when this decision was taken and in the rationale as well. And in this case, the postgraduate life cycle stood out because there are certain audit requirements that had to be addressed, which is quite serious in the scenario. We, like I've mentioned, compare each and every initiative against the other. And as per this results table, we then draw a report that shows out of the pool of, for example, 8 or even more sometimes initiatives, the ones that scored the highest, those are the ones that we should be focusing on, and those are ranked higher as well. And I think through debate and discussion, a decision is then ultimately made that we should focus on the top 3 or the top 5 initiatives. And these then filter ultimately into phase 2, where we start the business case process. Now, at the university, we are quite traditional in the sense of the methodology that we still apply. So things doesn't happen overnight. And in some cases, business cases can take 3 months, in some cases a year. But the aim is to get most of all of the business cases completed towards the end of our budgeting and planning cycle, well before we make decisions with regards to CapEx and OpEx requirements for the new financial year. Once we get to a point where the business cases are ultimately completed, we have another round of discussion with all the executives, and the completed business cases are shared and reviewed. We then go through another process where we ultimately prioritize and score these business cases. And I've mentioned at the start that we consider specific scoring criteria. We look at things such as business risk. So what is the risk to the institution if this project is not initiated? We look at strategic alignment. If there's a high alignment to our strategic goals, that is the ideal. From a technology readiness perspective, we consider if the proposal, as per the business case, support or is in support of our architectural and technology roadmap. We consider skills readiness. So do we have the skills internally to actually deliver on the project, or should it be insourced or outsourced? But also how to maintain it with the skills that we have once the project has been delivered. And then from a legislative or compliance perspective, we also consider things of that nature. Our business cases present a total cost of ownership of a 5-year period ultimately. And as per the screen that I have, you'll see that some of these initiatives or scores carry a bit more weight. So in this scenario, business risk and strategic alignment carries a bit more weight than technology readiness, skills readiness, and compliance. I've mentioned we then go through a process of discussion, we apply the scoring, and at the end, we ultimately produce a prioritization dashboard that we submit into this meeting with executives, and it essentially shows the following. Those proposed initiatives that we've done business cases for, and in this case, there were 5 approved initiatives. It also presents a total cost of ownership if we were to implement these initiatives over a 5-year period, but it also highlights the current initiatives that we are busy with to show that there are some thought that needs to be given to the resource capacity within our environment. It also presents the budget requirements and total per executive line. But I think most importantly, it shows that each one of these initiatives are in support of a specific goal area that supports the realization of our strategy. In this scenario, we have also then ultimately ranked the initiatives based on the scoring mechanism that was applied. And based on this example, the initiative that is ranked 1 is the committee management system. Secondly is the postgrad experience and SASSI timetable. And then thirdly, the one for dental faculty. So once again, at executive level, a decision is then made based on CapEx availability and other projects on the go to focus on the top 3 ranked initiatives. And these will then ultimately become the projects that we focus on in our new financial year. Tarryn, Guy, I think that's in a very quick nutshell what I wanted to share. It's a lot of information, but I'm happy to have a quick meeting or discussion with anybody afterwards if anybody has questions on this.
Andrea, I've got an Irish energy company doing exactly what you want to do, and they're not here today, and they normally attend. So I'm going to drag you into one of those sessions so that you can show them what you've done. Okay.
Cool.
Some questions that came on the chat, which I think are important. The initiatives entity that Andre showed you over there is the demand entity. Remember, in PPO, you can rename entities. So most of you maybe have a demand entity, which is the part before project. In this case, it's just been renamed to be initiative. If you don't have the demand entity, they can either be activated through the capability activator if you have that. Otherwise, just chat to Lindy and the support team and we'll sort you out. So that was a question asked, which I think was an important one. Okay, if there are questions for Andre, then pop them in the chat. He'll be with us for the next 20 minutes or so. We'll also try and answer, but you can also reach out to your success manager post this or to the support desk and anything that Andre's done there. There is a nice FAQ on prioritization as well. It's actually an article that talks about why prioritization is important, and then it shows some options there as well as to what to do. So I think Lindy can post that as well if you are thinking about prioritization. Another I almost said quiz. Another poll that's come up over here is what one word comes to mind when you think of project prioritization? What do you type, Taryn, if you don't think about prioritization? Because there's just too many of them.
Chaos. Somebody got it.
There you go. Ignored. There's a good one as well. Okay.
Okay, so we've got one more, I think 2 more features, depending on how much time we have. We may park the next one for the next webinar, depending on how we go. I'm going to move off this poll. I'll give you 1 more minute just to put in your responses. And this one is for the benefit of all of the attendees. We cover client spotlights based on what it is that you guys want to see. So this really helps us with our planning and knowing which clients are using what feature or functionality or capability. And based on that, we've got our next webinar in November. Your input will guide us on what you want to see in the next client spotlight. So we've had things like demand managements in the past. We've had approvals for documents. So if there's anything that you're struggling with, if you're either doing it manually or you want to see how other clients or organizations are using specific capabilities in PPO, just pop it via the poll, and that can help us bring to you what you want to see. Does no responses mean that you don't want to see anything? Oh, okay. There we go. Okay, we've got some three responses.
I saw some of the DevOps guys from the DevOps team on the call. So guys, when you're looking for stuff to groom or you're looking for stuff to add to the pipeline,
this is your wish list, everyone. I'm not close enough to Guy to rub him. If I was, maybe we could all make wishes. He's our genie. He makes them come true.
I love the one about how to motivate users to use PPO. I think you need to make it the single platform for project portfolio management and stop the WhatsApps and stop the emails and stop the conversations. And okay, MS Project integration. For those that don't know, PPO has bidirectional integration to Microsoft Project, and with the feature now that Tarryn showed, you can map in the multiple resources. APIs to PBI, Power BI. So PPO has a Power BI API, which you can map it to any other BI tool, whether that's a Power BI or even an Excel sheet or a tick or a click or a Tableau. API, PPO has a fairly extensive API, which is integrated in most clients to a lot of ERP systems, document management systems. So a bunch of those things, but keep them coming. And I think it's a good opportunity for us to keep circling back on some of these things, maybe an opportunities to bring a client who's done some API work to one of these sessions going forward.
Okay. Thank you everyone for your input. The next one that I am going to touch on is the scheduler improvements. As we've mentioned, this scheduler Gantt widget has been worked on extensively since November last year. The developer's on our call today, Mahadi, so I think he'll be listening out for your questions. But I'm going to quickly show you some of the improvements that you've seen. A lot of them have been packaged into a single blog post. Lindy, if you wouldn't mind posting some of the schedule, I think there's 2 different blog posts with scheduler enhancements. But I'm going to first start with the use of a single date using the Gantt widget. So here I've got an example of a RAID view. So customized homepage dashboard, focusing on risks, actions, issues, decisions. In building this homepage view, I used the Gantt widget. Historically, you would have not been able to generate a view like this because something like a risk, an action, an issue, or a decision has a single date. In the case of risks, actions, and issues, it has a follow-up date. So with a single date, a Gantt widget usually shows a lapse of time using a start and an end. So you would be able to see the starting point and the end point in a bar. Now, we've extended the use of the Gantt widget, which depicts a single date as a milestone. So here you can see in my settings, when I configured my Gantt widget, I've used my follow-up date as the start and end. And as you know, in scheduling, when you've got an activity with the start and end date being the same date, it shows it as a milestone, or you've got 0 days in duration, it shows that as a milestone. What I've also done is I have changed my colors. This was another enhancement that you would have seen recently, is the ability to color code my Gantt widget, the bars, the milestones. As a default, what you see is fixed colors, which is closely aligned with what you see in Microsoft Project. This is my project task. This is my summary task. This is my detailed task, and that's my milestone. But what I've chosen to do is use the color coding of a data field, in this case, my overdue status, and now I can see where my risks based on the follow-up date is not overdue, overdue, and currently within a 7-day period of the follow-up date. So due soon. So there's a widget that uses a single date, Gantt widget using a single date and allowing you to generate a RAID dashboard. Decision responsibility, you can see, decisions, I've used the decision date as my single date. And here's also where I've used multiple resources being shown, and I've got both my issue owner and my contact person. Here, another feature is the ability for you to change the width of your columns. And in doing that, I can see both issue owner and contact person. If I bring this over again, I can see those 2 resources depicted on my Gantt widget. So this is something that's already available. It's there. Administrators, you can configure dashboards like this and share it with other user groups, or users, you have the ability to build your own through the homepage customization. So that's something that you would have seen recently. The next thing that I'm going to show you, this is again for my project. So this is a project where I am the project manager. And what I'm going to show you here, I've got my project task. I'm going to change my color coding again, and I'm going to focus on the task status. So I'll very quickly be able to see where my tasks are overdue or due soon or not due yet. And these are all of my overdue tasks. And it makes perfect sense because I can see the variance percentage. But the enhancements that you care the most about would be your exporting to your Gantt PDF. If I were to export this into my Gantt PDF, just want to quickly do this. What you will now see is a PDF output generated of my Gantt here for my project. And the improvements that we've made is to the formatting of this Gantt. So here you have the ability to share this with stakeholders based on the columns you've customized. You can see the dependency links. So that was one of the improvements. You've also got page breaks that make sense. So it doesn't cut off in the middle of the task. You can see page breaks that make sense. And you also see stretching that's clearly visible, and it stretches across the PDF output. So in the event you've got users that aren't using PPO and you want to still be able to export the PDF output, you can see that. The next change that I just want to quickly highlight is from my project view page. So let me quickly get there. So it's the same project. I want to get to my project status dashboard. So with the update to the Gantt widget, you are also now able to show the Gantt widget in your project status dashboards. So here, this is an example of a task list. This is the default that most of you have on your status dashboard. But what I can also do is I can choose to show my status dashboard. So if you go to your status dashboard, you will notice that you've got the ability in your parameters to show tasks as a Gantt chart. So looking again at my same project, being the fixed admin project, when it is show tasks as Gantt, it'll now display the updated Gantt widget in my status dashboard. I can choose to filter the default filter parameters, summary, milestones only open tasks. I can do that. For this purpose, I'll show all of my tasks, and you'll see that in my status dashboard, it shows the output that you're used to seeing when you're working with the Gantt widget. So here, you'll see there I have it. Same capability, change my column widths, make them bigger in cases that I want to. You'll see the information wraps, plan start and end date wraps. I've got the zooming in and zooming out on my slider. So there you can see it. I can do that. And again, I've got the ability to export or download the PDF document of this section of the status dashboard. This, you might not have this available on your instance, and this would be another example of if you want to update your status dashboards Gantt, it would be one that you would talk to your success manager about or log the ticket via the support desk. And that is it for scheduler improvements. I don't think we have enough time, guys, to touch on the calculated key metric, so we might have to just hold that one over for our next session.
Yeah, we suspected that we might overrun a little bit. So the calculated key metric is a feature we're currently working on. You will all see it on your instance and get notified of it via the blog if you subscribe to the blog. So please do if you don't. Before our next session. It's an exciting feature, one that we've been working with ourselves for a while now. So yeah, we'll cover that definitely in the November one. In the meantime, here's a poll. The amount of leave we get in December depends on the average score of these polls. So please, we all want to go to the beach and do nothing for a while. Oh, no, it's going the wrong way now. Other way. Okay, but keep those coming. We'll get the results afterwards. For those of you that don't subscribe to the blog, Lindy has posted it. We don't sell training. We don't do Black Fridays. We don't do any of that type of stuff. We're not going to try and sell you certified points or whatever, anything like that. We literally send one email every Thursday with the latest product announcement. And if there's not a product announcement for the week, a generic PPM article that we've written, which we think is important, or a client success story. So no spam, no sitting on the list, no trying to use it for other purposes. We just want to make sure that all the development hours and all the effort we put in to upgrade and keep the product updated, everybody's aware of it. There were comments today made around, integration to MSP and APIs and Power BI. A lot of these things PPA already has, and we commonly find clients who maybe not sure of some of these features or, joined the PPO family late and weren't there when the BI API was launched and those type of things. So, we keep constantly trying to remind clients of all the features and functionality. What Andre was demonstrating earlier, some of those functionality and features have been around in PPO for 4 or 5 years now already. So if you don't have it and you feel like you're behind, the feature and the functionality has been there for a long time already. It's just whether it's, activated and aligned to your maturity and to your requirements. Okay, something else we've been doing for a long time now is boot camps. So we've been doing online training. With COVID, a couple of years ago, we moved all our classroom training to be online. Small little incremental training sessions. We've now extended those. So for those of you that are not aware, and these are also in the blog, so another reason to subscribe to the newsletter on a Thursday. All the upcoming training sessions we do and we put in there as well. So you'll see these are the next couple of training sessions. These training sessions are free for any PPO user, and we even have some people who are evaluating PPO, or we've had competitors from other organizations join these training sessions. But the intention of this is to focus on specific features and functionality. Most of these training courses are about 90 minutes. You log on, there's the first one, Mastering Collaboration. There was a comment made about, how to get people to use PPO more. Collaboration is one of the keys. Clients that are collaborating in PPO and working together and doing conversations and comments and those type of things in PPO are definitely getting more value. So if Tarryn just drills into that top one, if it's one that interests you, click on the Learn More button. It's very, very simple. It gives you a description of what this training course is about. It shows you when it's currently running in the time zone that you are, who needs to attend it, what's there. This one is a 60-minute session, all delivered via Teams. And my eyes are getting worse the older I get. It looks like 15 seats over there left. So if you're one of the next 15, you can sign up, register. It'll pop it into your calendar. You can see who the trainer for that is going to be. And that's a free training session. And you can share these links with all your users. Obviously, when the seats fill up, then they're taken up. We can't have too many people in these training sessions, but that training calendar is available, and it's important, I think, specifically if you're new or if you're an administrator, maybe new to the PPO administration or any one of those things. So here are all our events, the next product webinar, that's already up there as well. So I think this is a useful page, but if you get the blog articles on a Thursday, any of the next events that we do online are available there as well. Okay. Okay, there you go. Next one. Same time, but on the 19th of November, it'll be the last one for the year. There is the link already if you want to register and pop it in your diary. The content of what we cover and the client success story or the client spotlight will come over time, but that'll be the last one for the year. For those of you that have been PPO clients for many years, you know this. For the new ones, we generally freeze product enhancements from about middle November till middle Jan. We continue to work on enhancements. We have developers who normally work over December anyway, but we don't release it because they get lost in the December stuff, and we don't generally want to make too many changes over that period. Some of the administrators are there, not there. PMO managers are out of the office. People are away for festive period. So we continue development work, but we stack them up on our side, and then come middle Jan, we'll start releasing. So this will probably be the last set of feature releases for this calendar year that we cover on the 19th. And then we'll probably see each other again for these sessions somewhere around February. Okay, so please register. And remember, I know some of you are administrators and some of you are PMO managers. This is not meant to be an exclusive club. We'd like every single PPO user to be here. So please share this with them. They're more than welcome to attend. If there are any questions, we've got a couple of minutes left. You can more than welcome to unmute yourself and ask, failing which you can type a comment and we'll raise it there as well. For those of you that need to drop off for the next session, thank you very much for joining us. Andre, once again, thank you for the time and for sharing it. I'm sure you will get a bunch of requests to show and demonstrate some of your stuff there. I see a lot of prioritization discussions happening. So yeah, I think you're probably definitely going to get taken up on your offer. Mpo, you've very politely raised your hand. You're more than welcome to unmute and ask your question.